if you haven't already watched my Soft White Underbelly interview, I highly recommend that you do that before watching this video. Otherwise, you might be a little bit lost. If you already watched it, the intention with this video is just to add a little bit of context, answer some questions, and offer a little behind the scenes. It was my first and only time so far doing something like this on as big a platform as Soft White Underbelly. And I think it's kind of neat sometimes for the shows that we all love, to know, like, what would it be like if I went on that show? Not just the actual interview itself, but like everything around it, and it's particularly relevant with my interview just because of some of the things that went down on my end. So yeah, I guess I'll start with that. Um, I was for about 4 days leading up to the interview, like almost bedridden, with what I think was food poisoning. Um, so, for literally the day of the interview, I was at my hotel in Santa Monica, um, just not to be graphic, but literally just woke up at like 7 a.m., barely got any sleep. The interview was at 11 or 11:30 or something like that. And from 7 to 11 a.m., I was literally just getting up to go vomit and poop and going back to bed for 5 minutes before I did it over and over and over and over again, wondering, like, what the hell am I going to do? Am I going to have to cancel day of on Mark? Um, and luckily, it just like 30 minutes before, I started feeling like, okay, I still don't feel 100%, but I think I can get through this. That definitely, in some ways, influenced um, the interview. I think in good ways and in bad ways. In bad ways, just in the sense that maybe I wasn't mentally as clear, but it was positive in the sense that I was not really nervous anymore. Like after the first 2 minutes of the camera rolling, I really was not feeling nervous at all. And I think partly it was just because I was so relieved that I wasn't vomiting and shitting myself anymore. That I was like, nothing is worse than how I've been feeling for the last 4 days. So it just gave me a sense of like, all right, I can do this. It's going to be okay. As far as the interview itself, I remember for about a day after we recorded feeling like, holy shit, what did I just do? Not just appearing in such a public way, talking about my childhood and the stuff that I've been through, but also admitting to something that I had not disclosed to anyone in my life yet, the relapse, or at least the details of the relapse, and just feeling really nervous about that. Like, what's my family going to think? What are my friends going to think? Um, but then the more I thought about it, the more I landed on like, I didn't, I feel like I was authentic in the sense that I relayed the story and the words that needed to come out and not the ones that I felt safe letting out. Um, and so that's always kind of been like my North Star. Not always, but since I decided to make a change in my life, is to be authentic and to be honest. And so, yeah, I found peace in that. Like, yes, there's going to be people that are like, holy fuck, this dude's, a pussy, or this dude's gay, or this dude's whatnot. Um, and that's okay. But also, there's going to be people that are like, holy shit, I've done stuff just like that, or, worse, whatever worse means. And therefore, I'm not alone. When they hear me talking about that, that matters more to me than the judgment that I might get or that I might feel. And then the last thing I want to share before I get into some of the questions and comments that I received is, like, if you watch that video and and you asked me what's one thing that I can do if I'm in a similar situation as you were, 6 years ago, what's one thing I can do that will help me sort of move the needle? Um, Writing about it. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to write like some fancy artsy language. Just admit the things that you're afraid to face to yourself first, because then that makes them real. When they're in our head, sometimes they still, it's like, yeah, I kind of did that, but I'm just ignoring it. It's just like in some corner in my head, so it's not really real. But once you write it down, you're like, fuck, that's okay. I did that, or this happened, or whatever it is. And then that allows you to shift from needing to accept that something happened to, okay, I've accepted it. Now, what do I do about it? But the second thing would just be to find a group, find, some kind of class that the arts and craft or pottery or Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like just any kind of class or group that you see regularly so that you can spend less time alone, less time in your own head, and more time around other people that will care about you and that will, in some way, even if not in the specific way that you want or need regarding the issues that you're dealing with, still help you feel like you're not alone and like you matter to people. Anyway, moving on to questions and comments. What I did with the Q&A was basically I downloaded all the comments as a text document and I fed that to AI, and I asked it what are the 5 most valuable things that I could address. And funny enough, one of them was the doctor's visit. So seems like a lot of people were arguing that it was not abuse, and some were arguing, well, it depends on each individual case. And some people were saying it doesn't depend on each case, like this shouldn't be done to children, etc., etc. I kind of agree with all three. I don't think that any of those perspectives is the only right one. Um, and so maybe more than classifying it as abuse, I think traumatic would be a better way, in the sense that I created a story in my head after that experience or during that experience, and that was that it matters more what other people want to do to my body than it does what I want to be done to my body, because I didn't want to do that. And the message I received from my parent was like, do what the doctor says no matter what. So no matter how you're feeling, you let this doctor do whatever he wants to do to you. And then there was my tone, my affect. It's something I'm very aware of, and it's something that's actually, um, I found out when I interviewed someone on my podcast. His name was Tucker Max.
Okay, so do you know what an affect is? A flat affect?
Like monotony, kind of.
Yeah, sort of. Your tone of voice is the same tone all the time,
Okay.
right? That's called a flat affect. What that normally indicates, right, is that someone has a very repressed emotional,
Mm.
right? It means they are holding a lot of stuff in, or holding stuff back. Why they're doing that, it could be a lot of different reasons why. But they are someone who is almost certainly to some degree they're dissociated, meaning they're not connected with themselves and their emotions.
I think I was very open with Mark that like I'm not at a fully healed state. I'm not like this superior being that's overcome every single issue that I have. Um, and there's definitely a lot that I'm still suppressing or repressing for whatever reason. And so yeah, that's very very much true. There's still a lot of work that I want to do. At Cat's Food Freedom, what should your parents have done to help you open up? What could possibly cut through that isolating teenage silence? I think this was like the best question I got. And it kind of stumped me because I was thinking about it for a while. Like, I don't really think there's anything that they could have done. Um, and ultimately, I think the answer that I gave, that I replied to them with, is sort of like the umbrella answer, which is that they would have had to accept their own past and kind of work on their own stuff first before they would ever have been able to help me. If I was going to give a different answer, it would be um, being present in my life. Like, again, I don't think that it was just that I had a lot of free time, but I do think that if I had not, if my sort of like default or baseline for most of my not at school time wasn't to be alone, I might have never found any of these websites, or even felt a desire to, right? Because I would have, the need for connection would have been met, and so I wouldn't have spent the rest of my time like seeking it out. But because that wasn't being met, and because I had a lot of free time, I spent most of that time desperately like, where can I find some form of connection? And if it wasn't with, my classmates, like girls that I liked, that I would text with, it was on these websites. And so, if this is something that you're worried about happening to your child, or if you think it's, already happening, like, more than worrying about, like, how do I fix this for them? Like, how do you fix whatever the hell is going on in your life that allowed for your son to end up here, or your daughter?
Well, I actually wish my dad would have told me his truth, his pain, his love, his stories. I wish my dad would have said sorry. I wish my dad would have acknowledged and heard me and seen me for being a workaholic and not actually being there for me. I wish my dad would acknowledge that he put me in an unfair position to be his friend and not his child.